You didn't know about her." Zara's voice was flat, empty, like she'd already given up on him. Dae-Won stood in the doorway of room 304, his hands shaking. She looked so small in that hospital bed. So tired. 6 months. He'd spent 6 months tearing apart 3 continents looking for her. And here she was. Alive. Staring at him like he was a stranger. "No," he said, his voice breaking. "I didn't know. Care to explain why?" "Because I knew what would happen if I told you." She turned to look out the window, her hand resting on her bandaged abdomen. "You'd try to control everything. Try to keep me safe. You'd turn my pregnancy into another problem to manage. So instead, you disappeared." The anger came now, hot and sharp. You were pregnant, and alone in a foreign country for 6 months. What if something had happened to you? What if the placental abruption had happened somewhere without medical care? I had a plan. Your plan almost got you and our daughter killed. The words hung in the air between them. Our daughter. A child he didn't know existed until a phone call at 3:47 in the morning shattered his world apart. Before we dive into this story, if you love tales about second chances and love that defies all odds, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss where this goes. Drop a broken heart emoji in the comments if you've ever fought for someone you love. Now, let's get into it. The phone rang at 3:47 a.m. Dae-Won had been awake anyway. Sleep had become a stranger since she left. He'd been standing at the window of his Seoul penthouse, watching the city lights, wondering for the 1,000th time where in the world Zara was, if she was safe, if she thought about him, if she was even alive. The number on the screen was unknown, international. His heart stopped because for 6 months he'd been waiting, praying, hoping for any sign of her, any proof she was still breathing. "Speak." He answered in English, his voice rough from disuse. "Mr. Kang?" A woman's voice came through, professional, accented. "My name is Dr. Amara Okonkwo. I'm calling from St. Catherine's Hospital in Accra. You're listed as the emergency contact for Zara Mensah." Zara. God. Her name still felt like swallowing glass. What happened? Dae-Won was already moving, crossing his apartment in bare feet, his mind calculating flight times, connections, variables. "Is she hurt?" "She's in labor, Mr. Kang." A pause. "The pregnancy has complications. Placental abruption. We need to perform an emergency cesarean section, but we need consent from family and... Sir, she's been asking for you." The world tilted. Pregnancy. Labor. His child. Zara had been pregnant when she disappeared. She'd been carrying his baby for 6 months, while he'd torn apart 3 continents looking for her, and she'd never said a word. "I'm coming," Dae-Won said, his voice deadly calm the way it only got when he was about to burn the world down. "You keep her alive. Whatever it costs, whatever you need, you keep them both alive until I get there. Mr. Kang, the surgery can't wait. Then do the surgery, save them. I'll be there in 14 hours. He hung up and made 3 calls, the first to his pilot. "Fuel the jet. We leave for Accra in 30 minutes. The second to his head of security. "I need a team in Ghana. Now." The third to the one person in his organization he still trusted. "Minjun. She's in Accra. She's alive. She's having my baby." Minjun was silent for exactly 3 seconds. "I'll handle everything here. Go get your wife." Wife. The word was legally true. They'd married in a courthouse in Hong Kong 8 months ago. Both of them reckless and desperate. And so in love it had felt like dying. But she'd left him before he could make it real. before he could prove he was worth staying for, before she could tell him about the child. Dae-Won stood in his empty apartment, the one she'd never lived in, the one he'd bought specifically so every corner wouldn't remind him of her. And he let himself remember. 6 months. That's how long she'd been gone. 183 days of not knowing, of searching, of hoping and despairing, and going quietly insane with the not knowing. It started with a phone call that should have been routine. "I need space," she'd said. "Time to figure out if I can actually live with who you are." He'd left her apartment in Accra with his heart in pieces, flew back to Seoul, and told himself to be patient, to give her the time she needed, to prove through his actions that he could change. For 2 weeks they texted. Nothing deep, just surface-level updates. She told him about her consulting work with the Ghanaian government. He told her about restructuring his businesses. They didn't talk about the violence that had driven her away, didn't talk about their marriage, or whether there was any way to fix what had broken between them. Then she stopped responding. At first, Dae-Won told himself she just needed more space. A week passed, then 2 weeks, then a month. He sent people to check on her. The apartment was empty, completely cleared out. Her neighbors said she'd moved out suddenly. No forwarding address, no explanation. Her consulting firm said she'd resigned, effective immediately. They had no idea where she'd gone. Her family in Ghana claimed they hadn't heard from her. Her father was polite, but distant. Her mother worried, her younger brother angry. But none of them knew where Zara was. Or if they did, they weren't telling him. Dae-Won went insane. He used every resource he had. Private investigators across 3 continents. Hackers who could breach any system. Contacts in law enforcement and underworld networks, spanning from Seoul to Lagos to London. Nothing. Zara had vanished like smoke, like she'd never existed at all. Part of him wondered if something had happened to her, if one of his enemies had found out about her and taken her to hurt him. He followed every lead, no matter how thin, checked every hospital, every morgue, every place a body might turn up. But there were no ransom demands, no bodies, no evidence of foul play. She'd chosen to disappear, chosen to erase herself from his life so completely that even with all his power, all his money, all his connections, he couldn't find her. The not knowing was torture, but worse was the knowing that she'd loved him enough to marry him, and then decided he wasn't worth staying for. His business suffered. Minjun ran interference, managed the day-to-day operations, kept the empire functioning, while Dae-Won obsessed over finding his wife. His focus shattered, his edge dulled. People noticed. Rivals sensed weakness. But Dae-Won didn't care. Nothing mattered except finding Zara, knowing she was safe, getting a chance to prove he could be better. He'd mapped out her entire life, every place she'd ever mentioned, every friend, every colleague, every distant relative. He had investigators watching her childhood home in Kumasi, her university contacts in Oxford, her consulting network across West Africa. Nothing. It was like she'd simply decided to stop existing. The nights were the worst. Lying awake in the dark, imagining scenarios. Maybe she was hurt somewhere, unable to call for help. Maybe she was hiding from some threat he didn't know about. Maybe she'd met someone else and was building a new life that had no room for him in it. Maybe she was dead, and he just didn't know it yet. 6 months of this. 6 months of searching and hoping and slowly dying inside. His apartment became a war room, Maps on the walls, photographs, timelines, dead-end leads marked in red. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly, stopped pretending to be human. And then the call came. 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Dr. Okonkwo's voice. She's in labor. The flight to Accra was 14 hours of pure hell. Dae-Won tried to work, tried to sleep, tried to do anything except imagine all the ways this could go wrong. But his mind kept circling back to the same thoughts. She'd been pregnant, carrying his child, building a life without him, and she'd never said a word. He pulled out his phone and searched placental abruption. The medical sites were clinical, detached. Premature separation of the placenta from the uterine wall can cause severe hemorrhaging, life-threatening for both mother and baby, requires immediate emergency intervention. Both mother and baby. He could lose them both. Could lose Zara before he ever got to say he was sorry, before he could prove he'd changed, before he could meet his child. His hands shook as he read. He forced himself to put the phone down, to breathe, to focus. Halfway through the flight, Minjun called with an update. Surgery went well. It's a girl. 4 pounds 6 ounces. Premature but stable. They've got her in the NICU. A girl. He had a daughter. Dae-Won. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. His throat closed up completely. Boss, you there? And Zara. The words came out broken. Alive. Lost a lot of blood, but she's stable. Still unconscious from the anesthesia when our guy checked. I want security on both of them. No one gets in that hospital room without clearance. Already done. Minjun paused. Do you know why she ran? Because I'm a bastard who chose violence over her, Dae-Won said flatly. Anything else? The hospital mentioned she's been living in Accra under a different name. Zara Owusu, not Mensa, working as a freelance consultant. Modest apartment in Osu. No red flags, no suspicious activity. She's just been living a quiet life. Without him. Pregnant with his child. Building a life that had no room for him in it. She'd changed her name. Started over. Erased him completely. Understood. I'll be there in 6 hours. Dae-Won hung up and stared out the window at the clouds below. His daughter was in the world, tiny and fragile, and fighting to live. And he hadn't even known she existed until 2 hours ago. The rage came then, hot and sharp. Zara had kept this from him, had hidden her pregnancy, disappeared, and dealt with everything alone. What if something had gone wrong earlier? What if she'd needed help, and he hadn't been there because he didn't even know to look for her in Accra? But beneath the rage was fear, bone deep, consuming fear. What if Zara didn't want him there? What if she'd kept the pregnancy secret because she didn't want him involved in their child's life? What if he'd flown across the world only to be turned away? The plane couldn't move fast enough. Every minute felt like an hour, every hour like a lifetime. He landed in Accra at 7 a.m. local time. Went straight from the airport to the hospital. His security team had already established a perimeter. 2 men on Zara's floor. 2 in the NICU. All of them armed and briefed on potential threats. Because Dae-Won's world didn't stop being dangerous just because he had a family now. If anything, it made him more vulnerable. A wife and child were leverage. They were targets. Every enemy he'd ever made would see them as weaknesses to exploit. Dr. Okonkwo met him in the hallway. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. Mr. Kang. She shook his hand. Your wife is awake. I should warn you, she wasn't pleased to find out I'd called you. I don't care if she's pleased. Where is she? Room 324. Dr. Okonkwo's expression softened. Go easy on her. She's been through significant trauma. Her body needs time to heal. Dae-Won nodded curtly and walked to room 304 with his heart trying to break out of his chest. The door was partially open. He could see her through the gap. Sitting up in bed, staring out the window at the Accra skyline. She'd lost weight. He could see it in her face, her shoulders. Her hair was wrapped in a colorful scarf, and there were dark circles under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and fear. But she was alive. She was here. She was real. He pushed the door open. Zara. She turned her head slowly. When their eyes met, he saw everything. Love and anger and fear and exhaustion, and something that looked like resignation. Like she'd already decided how this would end. Which brings us back to the beginning. Back to that hospital room. Back to the confrontation that would determine everything. You don't get to make unilateral decisions about our child, Zara, Dae-Won said, moving closer to the bed. She's mine too. Is she? Zara's eyes flashed with something dangerous. Because I don't remember you being there for the morning sickness, or the doctor appointments, or the nights I couldn't sleep because I was terrified I'd mess this up. You weren't there, Dae-Won. So yeah, I made decisions alone, because I was alone. By choice. You chose to leave. Because you chose violence. Her voice broke on the last word. The words hit him like a physical blow. Dae-Won sat down heavily in the chair beside her bed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the beeping of monitors and the distant sounds of the hospital. I protected my people, he said finally. I did what I had to do. I know. Zara wiped her eyes angrily. That's what terrifies me. You'll always do what you have to do, and what you have to do is dangerous and brutal. And I can't. I can't raise a child in that world. So what was your plan? Hide from me forever? Raise my daughter and never tell her about her father? I don't know. Her voice was small now, defeated. I hadn't figured that part out yet. I just knew I couldn't do it with you. Not the way things are. And how are things? You're still running the organization. You're still neck-deep in everything that made me leave. Nothing's changed. Everything's changed, Dae-Won said quietly. I have a daughter now. I have a family. You think that doesn't change my priorities? I think you'll always choose the organization when it comes down to it, because that's who you are. She was wrong. She had to be wrong. But looking at her now, exhausted and scared and so far away despite being 3 feet from him, Dae-Won wasn't sure he could prove it. Can I see her? He asked instead. Our daughter. Zara hesitated. He watched the war play out across her face. Finally, she nodded. The NICU is on the 3rd floor. Ask for Dr. Mensah. She's the pediatrician. They'll let you in. Will you come? I can't walk yet. The C-section. She gestured vaguely at her abdomen. Maybe tomorrow. Dae-Won stood, paused at the door, turned back. I'm not giving up on us, Zara. I know you think I will, but I won't. You're my wife. That's my daughter. And I'm going to prove to you that I can be the man you need me to be. I don't need you to be anyone except who you are, Zara said tiredly. That's the problem. I just don't know if who you are is compatible with the life I want. The words hurt more than they should have. Dae-Won left before he could say something he'd regret. The NICU was on the 3rd floor, just like she'd said, sterile and quiet, filled with tiny humans fighting to live. A nurse in pink scrubs directed him to an incubator in the corner, and Dae-Won stopped breathing. She was impossibly small. Tubes and wires connected to her tiny body, monitoring every heartbeat and breath. But even through all the medical equipment, he could see Zara in the shape of her face, could see himself in the dark hair, the long fingers, his daughter, his child, a piece of himself he hadn't known existed. "You can touch her," the nurse said kindly. "Through the ports. She needs to know her father's here." Dae-Won slid his hands through the openings in the incubator. His hands looked massive, dangerous. He was terrified he'd break her just by touching her. But he reached out carefully and touched one tiny fist. Her skin was impossibly soft, softer than anything he'd ever felt, warm and fragile and perfect. She opened her eyes, dark and unfocused, and seemed to look right at him, like she knew, like she recognized something in him despite never having seen him before. "Hey there," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I'm your dad. I'm sorry I missed the beginning, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." The baby wrapped her tiny fingers around his thumb. The grip was weak but determined, like she was holding on, like she was telling him to hold on too. And Dae-Won, who'd killed men without blinking, who'd built an empire on fear and control, who'd thought he was too broken for this kind of love, broke down crying in a NICU in Accra. Because this tiny person was his, and he'd move heaven and earth to protect her, to be worthy of her, to prove to Zara that he could change. He stayed there for hours, just watching her breathe, watching the monitors track her heartbeat. The nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting equipment. They didn't ask him to leave. Maybe they recognized the look on his face, the desperate need to be close to this small miracle. "She's a fighter," one of the nurses said, an older woman with kind eyes. "Came into the world fighting. That's a good sign. How long will she need to be here?" "At least 2 weeks. Maybe 3. She needs to gain weight, get stronger. But she's doing well, all things considered. 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Time he could use to prove to Zara that he meant what he said, that he could change, that he could be the father this little girl deserved, the husband Zara needed. When he finally left the NICU, it was late afternoon. He hadn't eaten, hadn't slept in over 30 hours, but he went back to Zara's room anyway, needed to see her, needed to try again. She was awake, picking at a hospital meal. She looked up when he entered. Her expression was guarded. "You saw her," she said, not a question. "Yeah." Dae-Won sat in the chair beside her bed. "She's perfect. She's so small. The nurse said she's a fighter." Something flickered across Zara's face. Pride, maybe. "She is. She came early, but she came fighting." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Dae-Won asked the question that had been burning in his mind. "When did you find out? About the pregnancy?" Zara set down her fork. "About a week after you left Accra, after I told you I needed space." "And you didn't think to tell me?" "I thought about it. Every day. I'd pick up the phone, and then I'd remember why I asked you to leave in the first place." She looked at him directly. "I couldn't bring a child into your world, Dae-Won. The violence, the danger, the constant threat. I couldn't do that to her. So you did it alone instead. I had help, friends, a good doctor. I wasn't completely alone. But you were alone in the ways that mattered." Dae-Won leaned forward. "I should have been there, Zara. For the appointments, the ultrasounds, the moments when you were scared. That's my child, too. You robbed me of that. And you robbed me of safety." Her voice rose slightly. Then she winced, hand going to her incision. "You chose violence. You went to war. You proved that when things get hard, you'll always choose that life over everything else. That's not fair, isn't it?" Zara's eyes filled with tears. "They attacked your people, so you destroyed them. Systematically, brutally. I saw the news reports, Dae-Won. The explosions, the bodies. You turned into exactly what I was afraid you'd become. They killed innocent people. People under my protection. I had to respond or I'd look weak. And in my world, weakness gets you killed. I know. That's the problem. I understand why you did it. I understand the logic. But understanding doesn't mean I can live with it." Dae-Won ran his hands through his hair. They were talking in circles. The same argument they'd had 6 months ago. Nothing resolved. Nothing fixed. "We need to talk about what happens when she's discharged," he said, changing tactics. "In 2 or 3 weeks. Where will you go?" "I have an apartment here, in Osu. It's small, but it's safe. I want you both in Seoul. I have resources there. Security. The best medical care. No." Zara's voice was firm. "I'm not bringing her into that world. Into your world. She's already in my world. She's my daughter. Then change your world." Zara turned to look at him fully. "You keep saying things will be different. That you'll change. Prove it. Walk away from the organization. Build something legitimate. Something safe. It's not that simple. It never is with you." She turned away. "I'm tired, Dae-Won. Can you please go?" He wanted to argue, wanted to push, but she looked exhausted, pale, like even this conversation was taking more energy than she had. "Okay," he said quietly. "I'll go. But I'm not leaving Accra. Not until we figure this out." "There might not be anything to figure out." The words hit like a punch to the gut, but Dae-Won just nodded and left the room. He checked into a hotel near the hospital. The presidential suite, because even in crisis, old habits died hard. His security team briefed him on the perimeter they'd established. The hospital was locked down tight. No one would get to Zara or the baby without going through them first. But as he stood in the hotel room, looking out at Accra's skyline, Dae-Won realized security wasn't the problem. The threat wasn't external. It was him, his choices, his world, his inability to walk away from the empire he'd built. Zara was right. Nothing had changed. He was still the same man, still running the same organization, still living a life that required violence to maintain, and she was asking him to choose the empire or his family, power or love, the life he'd built or the life he wanted. His phone rang. Minjun. "How is she?" Minjun asked. "Alive, angry, convinced I can't change." "Can you?" It was the question, wasn't it? Could he change? Could he walk away from everything his father had built? Could he dismantle an empire that employed hundreds of people, that had obligations and debts and entanglements that couldn't be easily severed? "I don't know," Dae-Won admitted, "but I have to try. What do you need from me?" "Time. Keep things running. I need a few days here to figure this out." "You've got it. But boss, there's been some movement. The Choi family is sniffing around your territory. They think you're distracted. Let them sniff. If they move, shut them down. Hard. Understood." Dae-Won hung up and immediately hated himself. Let them sniff. Shut them down. Hard. This was exactly what Zara was talking about. This was the life that had driven her away. The life he kept choosing. He didn't sleep that night, just paced the hotel room, thinking, planning, trying to figure out if there was any version of his life that didn't involve violence. The next morning, he went back to the hospital, spent hours in the NICU with his daughter. The nurses had started calling her baby girl Kang, since Zara hadn't officially named her yet. "Have you thought about names?" one of the nurses asked. "Not yet. That's something her mother and I need to decide together." If Zara would even talk to him about it, if she'd let him be part of any decision regarding their daughter's future. But when he went to her room later that afternoon, Zara was sitting up, looking better, some color back in her face. "Hey," she said when he entered. "Hey." He sat in the chair that was becoming his. "You look better." "I feel better. Dr. Okonkwo says I can try walking tomorrow. Maybe visit the NICU. She'd like that. Our daughter. She needs her mother." Zara looked at him for a long moment. "We need to name her. We can't keep calling her the baby." "What were you thinking?" "I liked Amara. It means grace in Igbo. And maybe Sue as a middle name?" "For your mother?" Dae-Won's throat tightened. His mother had died when he was young. Cancer, quick and brutal. He barely remembered her except in fragments. The way she'd sung to him. The smell of her perfume. The sound of her laugh. "Amara Sue," he said quietly. "It's perfect." "Amara Sue Mensa Kang," Zara corrected. "She gets both our names." "Agreed." He smiled for the first time in days. "Amara Sue Mensa Kang, our daughter." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Zara said, "I've been thinking about what you said, about how everything's changed now that you have a family. Yeah, I want to believe you. I want to believe that this changes things. But Dae-Won, I've heard promises before. You promised you'd leave that life behind when we got married. You promised it was temporary, that you were transitioning to legitimate business. But then, the first crisis hit, and you went right back to it. Because people were dying, Zara. What was I supposed to do? I don't know, but I know what you did. And I know I can't watch you do it again. I can't raise Amara in constant fear that one day you won't come home, that one of your enemies will decide we're easier targets than you are." She was crying now, silent tears running down her face. "I love you," she said. "I never stopped loving you. But love isn't enough. Not when the cost is my daughter's safety. Not when the price is living in constant fear." Dae-Won wanted to promise her everything. Wanted to swear he'd change. He'd walk away. He'd build a different life. But he'd made those promises before. And when it mattered, he'd broken them. "What if I could prove it this time?" he asked. "Not with words, with actions. Real, permanent actions." "What do you mean?" "Give me the time Amara needs to be in the NICU. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it takes. And I'll show you that I can change, that I can build something different. Dae-Won. I'm not asking you to forgive me yet. I'm not asking you to come back to me. I'm just asking for a chance to prove I'm serious." Zara studied his face, looking for lies, for false promises. "And if you can't, if nothing changes, then I'll sign whatever papers you want. I'll set up support for you and Amara. I'll be involved as much as you're comfortable with. But I won't fight you. I won't use my resources to take her from you or control your life. You have my word." "Your word?" Zara laughed, but it was bitter. "What's that worth?" "Right now? Not much. But give me 3 weeks. Let me earn back the right to make promises to you." She was quiet for so long he thought she'd refuse. Then finally she nodded. 3 weeks. But Dae-Won, if this is just manipulation, if you're just trying to buy time to figure out how to control the situation, I will disappear again. And this time, you'll never find me. I understand. Do you? Because I mean it. I will protect Amara from everything, including you, if I have to. The words should have made him angry. Instead, they just made him sad, because she meant it. She'd disappear with their daughter, and he'd spend the rest of his life knowing he'd failed them both. I won't make you run again, he promised. Whatever happens, whatever I do or don't do, I won't make you feel like you need to hide from me. Zara nodded. Exhaustion was creeping back into her face. I need to rest now. Okay, I'll come back tomorrow. He started to leave, then turned back. Thank you for giving me a chance. I know I don't deserve it. You don't, Zara agreed. But Amara deserves a father who tries. So I'm giving you the chance to be that. Dae-Won left the hospital and went straight back to his hotel. He pulled out his phone and stared at it for a long moment. Then he made a call that would change everything. Min-jun, I need you to start putting together exit strategies. Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, exit strategies for what? Everything. The organization. All of it. I want detailed plans for how to wind down operations, transition people out, liquidate assets. Everything legal and clean. Boss, are you serious? Completely. I want out. All the way out. And I need you to figure out how to do it without getting everyone killed in the process. This will take time. Maybe years. I know. But I need to start now. Today. Because I just promised my wife I'd change. And this time, I'm actually going to do it. Min-jun was quiet for a long moment. Okay, I'll start putting together options. But Dae-Won, this is going to be complicated and dangerous. People aren't going to want to let you go. I know, but I have to try, because if I don't, I lose everything that actually matters. Understood. I'll call you in 48 hours with preliminary plans. Dae-Won hung up and felt like he'd just stepped off a cliff. There was no going back from this. He'd just set in motion the dismantling of everything his father had built. Everything he'd spent the last decade maintaining and growing. But his father was dead, and Dae-Won had a daughter who needed him to be better. A wife who deserved a husband who chose her over power. He spent the next 3 days in a rhythm. Mornings in the NICU with Amara. Afternoons with Zara, helping her walk the halls as she recovered. Evenings on calls with Min-jun, planning the impossible task of extracting himself from an empire that didn't want to let him go. Can you imagine loving someone so much, but knowing your world might destroy them? If this story is hitting you in the feels, show some love by hitting that like button. And I need to know. Team Zara or Team Dae-Won? Who do you think made the right choice here? Comment below. But hold on, because what happens next will shock you. Zara was getting stronger every day. The incision was healing well. She could walk without help now, could spend longer periods in the NICU with Amara. Watching her, Dae-Won saw glimpses of the woman he'd fallen in love with. The strength, the determination, the fierce love she already had for their daughter. But there was also wariness. Every time he walked into her room, she'd tense slightly, like she was waiting for him to disappoint her, waiting for him to prove her fears right. On the 4th day, she asked him directly, "What have you been doing? You're on your phone constantly, but you're not telling me anything." They were in the NICU together. Amara was sleeping between them, growing stronger every day. The doctors said she might be able to leave the incubator soon. Planning, Dae-Won said. Planning what? How to walk away from the organization. Zara's head snapped up. What? You were right. I can't be the father Amara needs while running an empire built on violence. So I'm figuring out how to leave. Dae-Won, you can't just walk away from something like that. I know. That's why it's taking planning. Minjun is helping me put together exit strategies. How to transition people out safely. How to liquidate assets without triggering a war. It's complicated, but it's possible. How long will it take? A year, maybe 2, but I've already started the process. Zara was staring at him like she'd never seen him before. You're serious. Completely. I'm done, Zara. I'm out. But your father built that organization. It's your legacy. My father's dead, and his legacy got him killed at 53. I want a different legacy. I want to be there when Amara takes her first steps, when she says her first words, when she graduates and gets married and has kids of her own. I want to grow old with you. And I can't do any of that if I'm running an organization that requires me to hurt people. Tears were streaming down Zara's face. I didn't think you could do it. I didn't think you'd actually choose us. You're all that matters. You and Amara. Everything else is just noise. She reached across the incubator and took his hand. The first time, she'd touched him voluntarily since he'd arrived in Accra. Her fingers were warm, familiar. Home. This is going to be dangerous, she said quietly. People won't want to let you go. I know, but I have security protocols, exit strategies. Minjun is handling the operational details while I'm here. We'll make it work. We, Zara repeated. You keep saying we, because that's what I want. If you'll have me, if you can forgive me for choosing wrong the first time. She was quiet for a long moment, studying their daughter between them. Finally, I never stopped loving you, even when I left, even when I was angry and scared. I never stopped. I never stopped either. But love isn't enough by itself. We need trust. We need partnership. We need to actually communicate instead of making unilateral decisions and then hoping for the best. You're right. I'll do better. I'll be better. And I'll try not to run away the second things get hard. Zara smiled through her tears. Maybe we can both work on our issues. Maybe. Dae-Won squeezed her hand. Can we try again? Actually try this time. I think we have to. For her. Zara looked at Amara. She deserves parents who are partners, who choose each other. She does. They stayed there for hours, just the 3 of them. A family, broken and rebuilding and taking the first fragile steps towards something better. That night, Dae-Won got a call from Minjun. We have a problem. His blood went cold. What kind of problem? The Choi family made their move, hit 2 of your warehouses in Busan. 3 people dead, 5 injured. Dae-Won closed his eyes. This was the test. The moment where he'd either prove Zara right or prove her wrong. The old Dae-Won would respond with overwhelming force, would make the Choi family regret ever touching his territory, would send a message written in blood that he was still dangerous, still in control, still not to be messed with. But that was the old life, the life he was trying to leave. Call the families of the dead, he said slowly. Set up trusts for them, education funds for any kids, medical care for the injured. And the Choi family? Cut them off, economically. Use our legitimate connections. Banks, suppliers, distributors. Make it clear that anyone who does business with them doesn't do business with us. But no violence. No retaliation. Boss, that's going to make you look weak. I don't care how it looks. I care about keeping my word to my wife. No more violence. We handle this the legal way. Min-jun was silent for a beat. Understood. I'll make it happen. But Dae-Won, this is going to embolden others. They're going to see this as an opening. Then we accelerate the exit timeline. I want to be completely out in 12 months instead of 2 years. Can we do it? It'll be tight. And expensive. But yeah, we can do it. Then do it. Whatever it costs. He hung up and sat in his hotel room, shaking. 3 people dead. Because of him. Because of his organization. Because of choices he'd made years ago that were still echoing forward. Still hurting innocent people. This had to end. All of it. Before more people died. Before his past came for his daughter. The next morning, he told Zara what had happened. She listened without interrupting. "And what did you do?" she asked when he finished. "I took care of the families. Cut the choice off economically. Accelerated my exit timeline to 12 months. No violence. No violence." Zara exhaled slowly. "That must have been hard for you." "Harder than I thought it would be," Dae-Won admitted. "Every instinct I have was screaming to hit back, to make them pay. But then I thought about you, about Amara, about the man I promised I'd be, and I made a different choice. I'm proud of you." The words hit him harder than he expected. When was the last time someone had said that to him? When was the last time he'd done something worth being proud of? "Thank you," he said quietly. They sat together in Zara's hospital room, and for the first time in months, the air between them felt lighter. Like maybe, just maybe, they might actually make it through this. Over the next week, something shifted between them. It wasn't fixed. Not even close. But it was different. Zara started asking him questions about the exit process, about what he was planning, about how he was protecting the people who'd worked for him. "What about the people who can't just transition to legitimate work?" she asked one afternoon. They were walking the hospital corridor together. Slow laps while she built her strength back. The ones who've only ever known that life. Min-jun is setting up job training programs, placement services. We're partnering with legitimate security firms, logistics companies. Anyone who wants out gets help finding something legal. Anyone who doesn't want to transition gets severance and connections to other organizations. But they're not my responsibility anymore. That's generous. It's fair. These people worked for me. Some of them for years. I'm not abandoning them just because I'm changing my life. Zara looked at him with something that might have been respect. "You've thought this through." "I've thought about nothing else for a week. Well, that and our daughter." As if on cue, they reached the NICU. Amara was awake today, eyes open and looking around with that unfocused baby stare. She'd gained almost a pound. The doctors were pleased with her progress. "She's getting so big," Zara said, sliding her hands into the incubator ports. "Soon she won't even fit in here. Dr. Mensah said maybe another week. Then she can move to a regular bassinet. And after that, maybe a week or 2 before we can take her home." Home. The word hung between them, because they still hadn't decided what home meant, where it would be, if they'd be together or apart. "Zara," Dae-Won started, but she shook her head. "Not yet. Let's just focus on getting her healthy. We can figure out the rest later." So they did. They fell into a routine. Mornings with Amara. Afternoons walking, talking, slowly rebuilding the trust that had shattered. Evenings apart, while Dae-Won handled business calls and Zara rested. Minjun called daily with updates. The exit process was moving faster than expected. Several of the legitimate businesses had already been transitioned to independent management. The less legal operations were being quietly wound down. There was resistance, of course. Some of the older members of the organization didn't understand why he was walking away, didn't understand why he'd give up power. But Dae-Won didn't care about their understanding. He cared about keeping his word. 2 weeks after Amara was born, she graduated from the incubator to a bassinet. Dae-Won was there when they made the transfer, watching the nurses carefully move his daughter from one space to another. She was still small, still hooked up to monitors, but she was stronger now, fighting less and growing more. "You want to hold her?" one of the nurses asked. Dae-Won froze. "Is that allowed?" "Of course. She's your daughter. Skin-to-skin contact is good for her development." The nurse showed him how to sit, how to position his arms. Then she carefully placed Amara against his chest. She was so light, so impossibly small against him. He could feel her heartbeat, rapid and strong. Feel her breathing, the tiny movements as she settled against him. "Hey, baby girl," he whispered. "It's Dad. I know I'm new at this, but I'm trying. I'm going to keep trying every single day." Amara made a small sound. Her hand opened and closed against his chest, and Dae-Won felt something crack wide open in his heart. This was what mattered. This tiny human who didn't care about his empire, or his reputation, or how many people feared him. She just needed him to be there, to be present, to be safe. He could do that. He would do that. When Zara arrived an hour later, she stopped in the doorway, just stared at them. Dae-Won holding Amara against his bare chest, both of them peaceful. "How long has she been like this?" Zara asked softly. "About an hour. I don't want to move. I'm afraid I'll wake her." Zara smiled. Really smiled. The first genuine smile he'd seen from her since Bangkok. "You're a natural. I'm terrified. That means you're doing it right." She came closer, reaching out to touch Amar's back. Her hand brushed against Dae-Won's chest, and neither of them pulled away. "She knows you. Look at how relaxed she is." "You think?" "I know. Babies can tell when they're safe. She feels safe with you." The words meant more than she probably knew. After everything, after all his mistakes, his daughter felt safe with him. It was a gift he didn't deserve, but one he'd spend the rest of his life trying to earn. That night, Zara was discharged from the hospital. She was healed enough to go home. But Amara still needed another week or 2 in the NICU. "Come stay at my hotel," Dae-Won offered. "I have a suite, multiple rooms. You'd have your own space, but you'd be close to the hospital, close to Amara." Zara hesitated. "I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm not asking for anything except to make your life easier. You've been in a hospital for 2 weeks. You need real rest, a real bed, room service, a bathtub." "You're bribing me with a bathtub. Is it working?" She laughed despite herself. "Maybe. But Dae-Won, if I stay, it doesn't mean we're back together. It doesn't mean everything's fixed. I know. It just means you're letting me take care of you, the way I should have been doing all along." "Okay," she said finally, "but I'm serious about separate rooms. Whatever you need." The hotel suite was ridiculous. Zara said so the moment she walked in. floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Accra. A living room bigger than her entire apartment. 2 bedrooms. 3 bathrooms. A full kitchen. "This is excessive," she said. "It's comfortable. Your room is on the left. I had them stock the bathroom with everything you might need. If there's anything else, just call the front desk." Zara explored her room, came back out looking bemused. "There's a tub big enough to swim in. I told you. Bathtub. You play dirty. I play to win." But he said it lightly, teasingly, the way he used to when they were first together, and everything was easy. Zara rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. "I'm going to soak for approximately 3 hours. Don't wait up." She disappeared into her room. Dae-Won stood in the living room, listening to the sound of water running. Having her here felt right, like pieces of his life clicking back into place. But he knew it was temporary, fragile. One wrong move and she'd bolt again. So he had to be careful, had to prove through actions, not words, that he was serious about change. Over the next week, they settled into a new rhythm. Breakfast together, spending the day at the hospital with Amara, dinner in the suite, or at nearby restaurants. It felt almost normal, almost like they were a real family. They talked about everything except the future. Zara told him about her work in cultural heritage, about the artifacts she'd helped repatriate, the history she was helping preserve. He told her about the legitimate businesses he was building, about the restaurant concept he was developing. Korean-Ghanaian fusion, a physical representation of their merger. "You really want to run a restaurant?" she asked one night over takeout. "Why not? I have experience in the industry, and I like the idea of creating something that brings people together, something that celebrates where we came from and what we've built. I think it's perfect." Zara paused. "I think you're perfect. I'm really not. No, but you're perfect for me." The air between them charged with something electric. Dae-Won wanted to kiss her, wanted to pull her close and never let go. But he held back. Let her set the pace. Let her decide when or if they crossed that line again. 3 weeks after Amara was born, Dr. Mensah gave them the news they'd been waiting for. "She's ready to go home. All her vitals are strong. She's eating well, gaining weight consistently. I'll want to see her weekly for the first month, but she's healthy enough to leave the NICU." Zara burst into tears. Happy tears. Relief tears. Dae-Won held her while she cried, his own eyes burning. Their daughter was coming home. But that raised the question they'd been avoiding. Where was home? That night, back at the suite, they finally had the conversation. "I want you both to come to Seoul," Dae-Won said. "Not forever if you don't want, but for a few months. Let me show you the life I'm building, the man I'm becoming. If after 3 months you still don't want to be with me, I'll help you set up wherever you want. Accra, London, anywhere. I'll provide whatever you need, but give me 3 months to prove I'm serious." Zara was quiet for a long time. "What about your exit from the organization? You said it would take a year. 9 months now, and most of the dangerous parts are done. The operations that could trigger retaliation are already shut down. What's left is mostly paperwork, transferring assets, legal cleanup. Min-Jun can handle most of it without me. So you'd be in Seoul full-time, not traveling for business. I'd be wherever you and Amara are, full-time, building the restaurant, being a father, being a husband if you'll let me. 3 months, Zara said slowly. And if it doesn't work, You don't fight me. You let me go. I promise. Okay, 3 months in Seoul. But Dae-Won, if you slip back into that life, if I see any sign that you're lying to me, I'm gone, and I won't give you another chance. You won't have to. I meant what I said. I'm done with that world. 2 days later, they brought Amara home to the hotel suite. The staff had set up a nursery in the second bedroom. Crib, changing table, everything they could possibly need. Amara looked even smaller in the crib, but she was healthy, strong, home. That first night was chaos. Amara woke every 2 hours, crying, hungry, needing to be changed. Dae-Won and Zara took turns, stumbling through feedings and diaper changes, learning the specific cry that meant hungry versus tired versus just wanting to be held. At 4 a.m, they were both in the nursery, exhausted, running on no sleep. Amara finally settled between them in the rocking chair. This is harder than I thought it would be, Zara admitted. We'll figure it out. We always do. Do we, though? We're not exactly great at figuring things out together. Then we'll learn. For her. Dae-Won looked down at Amara, sleeping peacefully now. She deserves parents who know how to be a team. Yeah, she does. They flew to Seoul 3 days later. Private jet, because traveling commercial with a newborn seemed like a nightmare. Amara slept most of the flight. Zara stared out the window, watching the world pass below. Having second thoughts? Dae-Won asked. Millionth thoughts, she admitted. But I'm still here. That counts for something. Seoul was cold when they landed. January in Korea was brutal, but the penthouse was warm. Dae-Won had had it completely redone. No more cold glass and steel. Now it was warm colors, soft furniture, a nursery that looked like something from a magazine. You did all this? Zara asked, walking through the space. I hired people, but I approved everything. Wanted it to feel like a home, not a showroom. It's beautiful. It's ours, if you want it to be. Over the next few weeks, they settled into life in Seoul. It was strange and wonderful and terrifying. Dae-Won had never lived with anyone before, never had to coordinate schedules or compromise on what to watch or figure out whose turn it was to do dishes. But with Zara, it felt natural, easy in a way that surprised him. Min-Jun came over for dinner one night, brought his wife Hana, who immediately fell in love with Amara. She's perfect, Hana cooed, holding the baby with practiced ease. You two make beautiful children. Just the one for now, Zara said quickly. For now, Dae-Won agreed, and Zara shot him a look that was half amused, half warning. After dinner, Min-Jun pulled Dae-Won aside. The exit is 90% complete. Just some final asset transfers. You'll be completely clean in about 3 months. Any blowback? Less than expected. I think people are relieved, honestly. You going legitimate means they don't have to worry about getting caught in crossfire anymore. Good. That's good. You seem happy, Min-Jun observed. Different. I am different. I have a family now. Real priorities. It looks good on you. And it felt good. Coming home to Zara and Amara every night. Helping with feedings and diaper changes. Reading stories even though Amara was too young to understand. Watching her grow and change every single day. Zara started taking Korean lessons. Said if they were going to spend time in Seoul, she should be able to communicate. Dae-Won helped her practice. They'd walk through the markets near the penthouse, and she'd try ordering food in broken Korean, while vendors smiled indulgently. You're getting better, he said, after she successfully ordered tteokbokki. I'm getting less terrible, There's a difference. You're being too hard on yourself. I'm being realistic. But I like learning. I like understanding your world better. It's our world now, if you want it to be. Zara looked at him. Really looked at him. I think I might. Want it to be our world, I mean. You've kept every promise. You're there every night. You haven't taken a single business call that wasn't completely legitimate. You're building something real. I told you I would. You did. But I didn't really believe you could do it. I'm glad I was wrong. That night, after Amara was asleep, Zara came to Dae-Won's room, knocked softly on the door. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Of course." She sat on the edge of his bed, nervous, fidgeting with her hands. "I've been thinking. About us. About what we're doing here. We're living together, raising a daughter together, acting like a married couple. But we're still in separate rooms, still treating this like it's temporary. I didn't want to push, wanted you to decide when you were ready. I think I'm ready." She looked up at him. "I'm not saying everything's perfect. We still have things to work on. But I want to try. Really try. Not just for 3 months. For real." Dae-Won crossed the room and pulled her to her feet, cupped her face in his hands. "Are you sure?" "I'm terrified, but yes, I'm sure." He kissed her then, soft and gentle at first, then deeper as she pressed against him. It felt like coming home, like finding something he'd thought was lost forever. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I never stopped loving you. I love you too. Even when I hated you, I loved you." They made love slowly, carefully, relearning each other, remembering what it felt like to be connected, to be whole. Afterwards, lying tangled together, Zara said, "I'm moving my stuff into this room tomorrow." "Yeah?" "Yeah. No more separate bedrooms. We're doing this for real." "For real," Dae-Won agreed. The next few months were the happiest of Dae-Won's life. Watching Amara grow, she started smiling, started recognizing their faces, would track them with her eyes as they moved around the room. Every tiny milestone felt monumental. Zara's consulting work picked up. She started doing remote projects for the International Heritage Foundation, working from home so she could be close to Amara, but building a career that mattered to her. And Dae-Won's restaurant concept moved forward. He found a location in Itaewon, started hiring staff, developed a menu that blended Korean and Ghanaian flavors in ways that shouldn't work, but somehow did. Jollof rice with gochugaru, fufu with kimchi, wakye bibimbap. "This is insane," the head chef said, tasting the menu. "But it's also brilliant." "It's us," Dae-Won replied. "It's our story in food form." 5 months after Amara was born, the last of the organization assets were liquidated. Min-Jun called to give him the news. "It's done. You're officially out. Everything that's left is completely legitimate." Dae-Won sat down heavily. It was really over. The life his father had built. The empire he'd maintained. All of it. Gone. "How do you feel?" Min-Jun asked. "Free," Dae-Won said. "I feel free." That night, he told Zara. She cried. He cried. They held each other and their daughter and knew that every sacrifice, every hard choice, every moment of fear had led them exactly where they needed to be. "I'm proud of you," Zara said. "I know that was hard. I know what you gave up. I didn't give up anything that mattered. I gained everything that does." Smooth talker. "It's true, though. 5 months ago, I had an empire and no family. Now I have you and Amara, and a legitimate business I'm actually excited about. I'd make that trade every single day." Good. Because you're stuck with us now. Best prison sentence ever. She laughed and kissed him. Amara made a disgusted sound from her bassinet. They both turned to look at their daughter. She's judging us, Zara said. She's 5 months old. Everything disgusts her. Fair point. 3 months later, Amira was sitting up on her own, babbling in a language only she understood, grabbing everything within reach. She had Zara's smile and Dae-Won's stubborn determination. She was perfect and exhausting, and they were completely in love with her. Dae-Won took Zara to dinner one night, left Amara with Hana and Min-jun, went to a nice restaurant with a view of the Han River. "What's this about?" Zara asked. "We never go out without Amara." "I wanted to do something special, just the two of us." Over dessert, Dae-Won pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring, not flashy or huge, just elegant and perfect. A single diamond surrounded by smaller stones that sparkled in the candlelight. The band had Korean designs on one side, West African Adinkra symbols on the other. "We got married in a courthouse with twisted wire and desperation," he said. "I want to do it right this time, with our families there, with Amara as our witness, with everyone we love celebrating us." He got down on one knee right there in the restaurant. Other diners noticed, started pulling out phones, but Dae-Won didn't care. "Zara Mensa, love of my life, mother of my child. Will you marry me again?" "Yes," Zara said, crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes, you ridiculous man. Yes." He slid the ring onto her finger. Perfect fit. Then kissed her while the restaurant applauded. "I can't believe you proposed in public," Zara said later, admiring the ring. "I wanted everyone to know. No more hiding, no more keeping us secret. I'm proud to be yours." "I'm proud to be yours, too." They planned the wedding for 6 months later, decided to have it in Accra, on the beach where Zara had grown up visiting with her family. Her parents flew in from Kumasi. Her siblings, cousins, extended family. The whole village, practically. Dae-Won's family was smaller. His mother was dead. His father, too. But he had Min-jun and Hana. Had business associates who'd become genuine friends. Had the staff from the restaurant who insisted on catering the reception. The ceremony was beautiful chaos. Zara wore traditional kente cloth, blended with a modern silhouette that made her look like royalty. Dae-Won wore a suit with Korean traditional elements. Fusion, just like their whole relationship. Amara was their flower girl. 11 months old now. Toddling down the aisle with Hana's help, throwing petals with way too much enthusiasm. Both families laughed and took pictures, and cried happy tears. "She's got your flair for drama," Dae-Won murmured as they watched their daughter. "And your stubborn refusal to follow directions," Zara replied. They said their vows again, new ones, written together during late-night conversations about the life they wanted to build. "I promise to always tell you the truth," Dae-Won said, holding her hands. "Even when it's difficult. Even when I'm scared. I promise to stay," Zara replied. "To fight through problems instead of running. To trust that we're stronger together. I promise to be the man our daughter can be proud of. I promise to build a life where we can all be proud of who we're becoming." When they kissed, their families cheered. Amara yelled, "Mama, Dada," and ran toward them. Nearly tackled Zara's legs. Everyone laughed. The reception was everything. Korean and Ghanaian food, music that blended K-pop with high life, dancing that had both families trying to teach each other their traditional moves, It was loud and chaotic, and absolutely perfect. Minjun gave a speech that made everyone cry and laugh in equal measure. To unlikely love stories, he toasted, and to the courage it takes to choose happiness over expectation. Dae-Won and Zara, you've shown us all that it's never too late to change. Never too late to choose love. Never too late to become the people we're meant to be. Later, when the party was winding down, and Amara had fallen asleep on her grandmother's lap, Dae-Won pulled Zara aside. "I have news," he said. "Good news or complicated news?" "Both. The restaurant is opening next month. We have reservations booked solid for the first 3 months. That's amazing. And I got an offer to open a second location, in Accra. A partner who wants to invest in the concept here." Zara's eyes widened. Seriously, I'm thinking we split our time. 6 months in Seoul, 6 months here. Build something in both places. Give Amara both sides of her heritage. You'd really want that. I want whatever lets me be with you. Geography doesn't matter. You're my home now." Zara kissed him, soft and sweet. "I love you. I love the life we're building. I love that our daughter will grow up seeing 2 cultures, 2 worlds, becoming one. Me too." They danced under the stars while their families celebrated around them. The ocean waves crashed behind them. Music filled the air. And Dae-Won knew, with absolute certainty, that he'd made the right choice. Not power, not control, not empire. Just this. Just them. Just love. This is the moment we've been waiting for. A man who gave up everything to gain what actually matters. If you believe in second chances, if you believe love can transform us, I need you to hit that like button right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because stories like this, stories about redemption and choosing family over everything else, these are the stories that matter. Comment family first, if you believe Dae-Won made the right choice. Now let me tell you how their story ends. 2 years after the wedding, Amara was 3 years old, talking in full sentences, mixing Korean, English, and phrases in Twi she'd picked up from her grandparents. She was stubborn and brilliant, and had both her parents wrapped around her tiny finger. The Seoul restaurant was thriving. The Accra location had just opened to rave reviews. Dae-Won and Zara split their time like they'd planned. 6 months in each place, building a life that honored both their cultures. Zara had taken a position as the West Africa division head for the International Heritage Foundation. Important work that let her make a real difference. Work she could be proud of. And Dae-Won had discovered he loved running restaurants, loved creating spaces where people came together, where cultures mixed, and boundaries dissolved over shared food and laughter. "Remember when we met?" Zara asked one night. They were in the Accra restaurant after hours, Amara asleep in the office, just the 2 of them, and a bottle of wine. "You spilled a drink on me, and then yelled at me for walking into you. You were in my space. I was standing still." "Details," she laughed. "I thought you were the most arrogant man I'd ever met. I thought you were terrifying, in the best way. And now? Now you're my wife, my partner, my favorite person. Still terrifying, though." She threw a napkin at him. He caught it and pulled her close. "I'm glad I spilled that drink," Zara said. "I'm glad you did too. Best accident of my life." "It wasn't an accident. You totally walked into me. I'll never admit that." "Stubborn man. Your stubborn man. Yeah, mine." They kissed, slow and sweet, the kind of kiss that spoke of years together and years still to come. "Dae-Won?" Zara said against his lips. "Hmm?" "I'm pregnant," He pulled back, stared at her. What? Surprise! We're having another baby. Due in 7 months. Another baby. He couldn't process it, could barely breathe. We're having another baby. You said that already. I'm in shock. Good shock. Amazing shock. He picked her up and spun her around. We're having another baby. Careful. Pregnant lady. Dizzy. He set her down gently. Carefully, like she might break. Are you happy? Terrified. But yes, very happy. Me too. Terrified and happy. Good combination for parenting. The best combination. They told Amara the next morning. She was suspicious. Baby? She asked. Where? In Mama's tummy, Zara explained. You're going to be a big sister. No, thank you. Dae-Won and Zara both laughed. It's not optional, sweetheart. Not fair. Life rarely is. But you'll love your sibling, I promise. Amara considered this. Okay. But baby has to like dinosaurs. We'll do our best. 7 months later, their son was born. They named him Kwame, after Zara's brother. Kwame Min, combining her family with Dae-Won's best friend. He was born in Seoul, healthy and loud and absolutely perfect. Amara was skeptical at first. Then she touched his tiny hand, and he grabbed her finger, and she declared him acceptable. He can stay, she announced, but I'm still the boss. Of course you are, Dae-Won agreed. And life continued, messy and beautiful, and nothing like either of them had planned. They fought sometimes, about parenting styles and business decisions and whose turn it was to change diapers. But they always worked through it, always chose each other. The restaurants expanded. 3 locations in Seoul, 2 in Accra, 1 in Lagos, each one a testament to what could be built when cultures came together instead of staying separate. Zara's work took her all over West Africa, repatriating stolen artifacts, preserving history, making a real difference. Dae-Won supported her completely, took the kids when she traveled, made it work, because that's what partners did. And Dae-Won never looked back, never missed the old life, never regretted walking away from power and violence and control, because he'd gained something infinitely more valuable, a family, a purpose, a life worth living. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they were back in Accra, on the same beach where they'd gotten married, watching Amara and Kwame play in the waves, building sandcastles and chasing crabs. Do you ever regret it? Zara asked. Giving up everything for this? Not even for a second. This is everything. Even when Amara draws on the walls, and Kwame refuses to sleep, and I'm too tired for conversation. Especially then. He pulled her close. You gave me a life I didn't know I could have. A family. A purpose beyond just surviving. I'd give up 1,000 empires for this. Good. Because you're stuck with us. Best deal I ever made. They sat on the beach while their children played. The sun setting over the ocean. The sound of waves and laughter filling the air. And Dae-Won thought about that phone call. 3:47 in the morning. The call that had shattered his world and given him everything. What are you thinking about? Zara asked. That phone call. When Dr. Okonkwo told me you were in labor, I thought I'd lost you forever, and then I got a second chance. We both got a second chance. Yeah, we did. And we didn't waste it. No, we didn't. Amara ran up to them, soaking wet. Kwame toddling behind her. Daddy, come play. Yeah, Dada, Kwame echoed. Play. Dae-Won looked at Zara. She smiled and nodded. They stood together and chased their children toward the waves, laughing, playing, being the family they'd fought so hard to become. Because in the end, that's what it came down to. Not power, not control, not empire. just love, just family, just choosing, every single day, to be better than you were the day before. And that was everything. That night. After the kids were asleep, Dae-Won and Zara sat on their balcony, looking out at Accra's lights. "Do you think we're doing it right?" Zara asked. "Parenting, marriage, life. I think we're doing our best, and our best is pretty good. You're biased. Completely. But I'm also right." She leaned against him, his arm around her shoulders, comfortable, easy, home. "I love you," she said. "I love you too. Every day, every moment, forever. Forever's a long time. Not long enough." They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who'd almost lost everything, who'd fought and struggled and chosen each other over and over again, who'd built a life from the ashes of what they'd lost. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Inside, Amara cried out. A nightmare, probably. They both stood immediately, moved together toward their daughter's room. Partners in every sense of the word. This was their life now. Late nights and early mornings. Scraped knees and homework. Laughter and tears and everything in between. It was messy. It was imperfect. It was absolutely beautiful. And Dae-Won wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And that's the end of Dae-Won and Zara's story. From a phone call that changed everything to a love that conquered it all. If this story moved you, if you believe in second chances and love that transforms, I need you to do 3 things. First, smash that like button. Let's get this story to everyone who needs to hear it. Second, subscribe and turn on notifications. I have more incredible stories about love, redemption, and the choices that define us. Stories that will make you laugh, cry, and believe in the power of change. Third, comment below. What would you sacrifice for love? Would you walk away from your entire world for your family? Have you ever gotten a second chance you thought you didn't deserve? I want to hear your stories, because this is why I do what I do. To share stories that remind us that no matter how broken we think we are, no matter how impossible our situation seems, love can heal. Love can transform. Love can rebuild. Remember this. It's never too late to choose differently. It's never too late to become the person your family needs. It's never too late to choose love over power, family over empire, what matters over what looks good. Dae-Won gave up everything, and in doing so, he gained what actually matters. A wife who loves him, children who adore him, a life with meaning and purpose and joy. That's not weakness. That's the bravest thing a person can do. To look at their life and say this isn't working and actually change it. To sacrifice power for love. To choose vulnerability over control. So if you're facing an impossible choice, if you're wondering whether you can change, if you're hoping for a second chance, remember Dae-Won and Zara. Remember that love is worth fighting for. That family is worth sacrificing for, that the best version of yourself is the one that chooses what matters. Until next time, choose love, choose family, choose to be better, choose to be brave.